there is the social shopping is a big part, and people as in selling stuff on social media. Also, if you look at what Amazon did with their X-ray, where you could pause on a video and then get information about what's on screen. If you throw in a shoppable element to that, and again, any broadcaster now can do the X-ray effect. They can do that. They pause the video, and whatever content they want to show about what's on that screen, they can show.
Hello and welcome to Beyond the Stream, the podcast where we discuss the OTT and media industry with expert guests. You can find this podcast on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and many other great podcast platforms, or on Simplestream.com. If you enjoy what you heard today, please subscribe, like, and feel free to join in the conversation on our social media. I have a very special guest today from the industry with a number of years of experience in the OTT industry. He is the head of marketing at Singular.Live and the head of growth at Reality Check Solutions. His name is Mike Ward. Welcome, Mike.
Thanks, Ed. That's quite an intro. And you were very kind to me, just describing a number of years. You could have said a number of decades as well, but yeah, very kind. Thank you.
Well, it could be a number of decades. I'll let our viewers decide whether it's a number of decades or a number of years. They can decide for you. But thank you again for joining me today. It's great to have you on. We've known each other quite a while now, Mike, actually. I met you originally at, I think it's kind of before IBC in 2023, I think it was, that we originally met through our obviously shared partnership through Simplestream and Singular.Live, and the projects we've worked on together as well. So I just wanted to get started with a bit about your background. So how did you kind of get into the industry, and what's been your favourite part so far?
Well, I suppose it's quite a convoluted, it's one of those not in a straight line kind of stories. I worked for a long time, for essentially a decade, for News Corporation. Now I'm really aging myself. A decade for News Corporation initially in Sky Media in the UK, which was selling ad space. And that was right through their transition into digital. And then I moved over to Italy to set up the ad sales, the in-house ad sales at Sky Italia. Then moved more onto the sort of content side and the third party and audience measurement. And then at the time when I was out in Italy, there was this company called Reality Check who were doing all the graphics for Sky Italia. And I met the founders who were out there working on the project. I was really interested in what they were doing. And then one thing led to another. Essentially, my wife got pregnant and we had our first child in Italy. And then she wanted to move back home to England. So we did that. I ended up working with Reality Check and setting up their UK office for them, looking after the business, and that's been fantastic. It was a change of career in a sort of different direction within broadcast, but still working with a lot of those broadcast clients, and a fascinating experience learning so much about live production and graphics and broadcast, and then becoming involved through Reality Check's involvement with Singular, becoming a development partner and working with Hubert and Thomas, the two founders there, which has been, again, an incredible experience. I'm really fortunate to have spent the last however long, many years, working with some really, really smart people who really are very, very well-regarded innovators, and rightly so, innovators in our field. So, yeah, it's been a fascinating few years, that's for sure.
I think your background definitely puts you in a unique position as well to do what you do today with Singular and Reality Check Solutions then, because now you're actually overlaying graphics that is taking data from different sources as well, and then presenting that on like live and on-demand feeds as well. So realistically, you've kind of come full circle in your career as well.
Yeah, do you know what? I've not even really considered that, Ed, but you're absolutely right. And I think the other side of it is also that data is becoming such an integral part of how people are operating now. So you're right in terms of the visualization of data, and that's what Singular and Reality Check, Reality Check uses lots of platforms. It uses VizRT, Ross Expression, Unreal. So we do a lot of different visualizations there. But then there's the other side of it, which is where you've got this convergence of digital technologies and streaming technologies into more traditional broadcast kind of spheres, where you get a different set of data. You can get data in terms of the platforms. So within Singular itself, there is a lot of analytics and data so that the the customers and clients can look at what they're using, what their team are using, what's being done. But then when you go to the end user and you've got interactivity and all those things, you can get direct and immediate feedback from viewers on, what are they interacting with? And that can be as simple as, if I'm doing a poll to say, do you prefer red or blue? You can see what viewers prefer. But equally, you can start looking at the ways in which you create content and say to people, well, look, we've got these two stories. Which one do you want us to focus on? Coming up after the break, we'll do a focus on what you choose. And viewers can say, we want to know more about that. And you're literally then able to react to that in real time and say, well, look, our content is going to be driven live by our viewers.
It does, definitely. I mean, having that control and that level of interactivity in your viewing experience. And also that would give you a wider appeal then to those audiences, because it feels more like a personalized experience from the viewer's perspective too. And I mean, with our project that we worked on together as well, Simplestream and Singular, then it was tech, innovation and infomercial content, or commonly known as teleshopping. We had a chance to work together on that project. And the integration of obviously what Simplestream do, our technology stack, and Singular.Live for TVSN. What are your thoughts on that a year later then? Because it's just over a year now, actually, that since that's happened.
I think that was one of the... So, look, I think as an industry, and actually it's not really an industry, because I think we've got different industries all converging at the moment. We've got broadcast, we've got streaming, we've got digital. There's all these different areas that are converging. And a lot of what we're doing at the moment, both on the RCS side, the reality check side, and on the Singular side, is actually POCs and innovation of, first types of things. And with you guys, that's what we did here, and it's really interesting because we look at a lot of these things and think, okay, that has to be of interest to people. That has to add value to what they're doing. But I think there's a lot of people on different sides of the fence who are quite reticent to try it, or, they're cynical and they think, well, it's not going to work. It's going to be massively expensive. It'll be really, really hard for us to operate and run. But actually, when they do it, and there might be some heavy lifting at the start, but it's not actually insurmountable at all. Once you do that, you're then in a position where you can really start testing and refining and finessing. And that's what's great about what we did with you. It's like getting that working in the first instance is really just the first step, because then you've got to evolve and you've got to learn, well, okay, great, we've got this brilliant technology. How do we really make it work? How do we make it sing so that it does what we want it to do and it offers something to our audience? And I think that's what's really interesting. And I keep saying to people, and it's in particular reference to broadcast, nobody ever wants to be first, but everyone wants to be second, because they want someone to go first and make all the mistakes, but prove it works, and then they'll come on board and do it. And I think that's what we've done with you guys.
It's funny you mentioned earlier about interactivity then, of like the viewing experience, because when we've attended trade shows, and we've both been at IBC over the past couple of years, one of the things that people always mention is that interactivity. And I think a lot of that stems from the fact that people want to capitalize on the success of the gaming industry. And they think, we should get a piece of that. But I think a lot of them end up with something that's a lot closer to Pong than the next Call of Duty in their minds.
Yep.
And as far as interactivity is concerned, have you seen any real world examples of that done well?
Well, I'm going to blow my own trumpet, but yes. And it's funny that I should say it's a complete coincidence that you mentioned Call of Duty. So I think still the two standout, well, it's probably three, but the two standout projects we've done interactivity-wise, first one was with Red Bull Rampage, where they had their downhill mountain biking, and they were just doing viewer polls, viewer questions. And because Red Bull Media have their own OTT platform, you could run that all through their OTT platform. And what was your favorite ride? Who's your favorite rider? Blah, all that kind of stuff. And it was really cool, because it was the first time we'd done anything like that. The second one was with Blizzard Activision, and it was around Call of Duty and also Overwatch League. That was an absolutely insane project. But I think sometimes these are the projects that really, really, really push things beyond the boundary. So that was working with Reality Check, who were doing the kind of live production and graphics for Blizzard Activision. And it was right around when COVID hit. So within the space of about 2 to 3 weeks, they had to transition all of their live production plans to a fully cloud production service. And this is now 3 years ago, maybe 4. That was quite a challenge in itself. But in addition to that, they were running what I thought, and I still believe, is one of the most sophisticated interactive solutions on a live stream. And what they had was they were simulcasting to YouTube and to their own OTT platform, but they wanted to drive viewers from YouTube over to their own platform, because obviously then they don't have to share revenue. So they had an interactive menu on the live stream on their own platform that allowed people to boo or cheer for their team, or boo the opposition. They could buy merchandise. They had 12 live webcams that were coming through AWS IVS, I think it was, their interactive video stream. So you basically had live webcams with sub-second latency of all of the 12 players, and you could cut between any of them through the interactive graphic at any point. They had live data, and all of those elements were sponsored by different people. So it was a brilliant revenue generator. It was in terms of having additional content to sponsor. It was brilliant for driving viewers from the YouTube, which was great for building audience, but actually, you were sacrificing a revenue share of your advertising. So get them on your own platform and you own it. And it was a really great way of engaging viewers and, having that interactivity. So I still think that is one of the most sophisticated examples of a really, really engaging interactive solution. But what's really surprised me is how slow traditional broadcasters have been in actually undertaking that opportunity and saying, well, hang on a minute, we could be doing that on our stuff, because there's so many things that we could do, and the technology is there, it's proven, but there's just I think there's a bit of inertia on the broadcaster part, whether it's fear or other factors, right? There's a lot going on in the broadcast industry at the moment with people under real pressure. Budgets are under pressure. So I think there's a lot of focus on, we've just got to do what we do as cheaply as possible, right? We have to make it will cost us more money. Whereas actually, I think there's a real opportunity for people to adopt new technologies and new things that will be new revenue generations, because that is what some of these technologies allow.
It's an interesting point, because I think for broadcasters now, they have a lot of very attractive programs for a range of audiences, not specific demos. You got things like Traitors, right? The Traitors, and that's like capturing the minds and of so many people. So many people I know from all different walks of life watch that show and were so engrossed by it as well. And you think if they just took what you mentioned there, what Activision and Blizzard did with Singular, if they just did something similar with that experience, whereby that level of sort of interactivity of deciding, what might happen next, being able to engage with a community around it as well, because that's realistically what drives those kinds of shows as well, is the community. Absolutely. And that's what gets people talking. So it's crazy when you think about it, when they've got the opportunity, you've got the technology there already, why they aren't harnessing that. Because also you mentioned the third-party platform, YouTube, we talk about it a lot in our content in terms of use it, but use it to your advantage and get people onto your platform. And if that's a way to do it, then there's a clear use case there.
That's where one of the interesting situations that's arising is where you have now got, I don't think it's happened yet so much in Europe, but in the US, YouTube is a very, very significant TV channel in its own right. People subscribe to it, they get their content through YouTube. And it will happen in Europe and the UK. You've then got broadcasters who are having to face that challenge. That's another kind of piece of competition for their audience. You've also got companies like Apple, right? Who the Apple deal with MLS is brilliant, because it is a massive muscle flex, because it shows the strength of the Apple TV platform, right? If you're going to go out and launch your own OTT platform, they're a client of ours, and I think they've done a lot of things brilliantly, but take DAZN as an example. They had a huge ambition to go out and launch a global sport-focused OTT platform, and they've done some amazing stuff, and they are still doing some amazing stuff. But you cannot deny the challenge of trying to do what they're doing, not just in terms of buying the rights, but getting the distribution, getting the infrastructure in place to work globally. Apple just go and do a deal for the rights to the MLS, and the infrastructure is already there. So they can serve that to anyone in the world, in whatever way they want. And it's just like, okay, how do I compete with that? Apple are like one of, if not the most kind of valuable companies or market cap in the world. And I'm trying to make a profit here, let alone be that wealthy. I'm trying to make a profit as a broadcaster in the streaming world, paying a fortune for these live rights and all the production stuff. It's like, how do you compete? And that's why you then start seeing things like the collaboration between Warner Brothers and others in the US, where they are bringing together. But it's almost like a kind of deja vu in that we kind of, everyone in the US was cable cutting and moving away from the aggregators. And now they're doing aggregation as a streaming solution because they have to, because they can't compete on their own with the massive Googles and Apples of the world. Innovation, as much as it presents a challenge to them through things like, YouTube and those and Netflix and those platforms where they can do it, it also presents opportunities for them, because broadcasters really, really understand their audience, and they really, really understand content creation. And so, that is a real advantage for them if they choose to use it, and if they choose to embrace new technologies and kind of take a leaf out of some of the stuff that people are doing on streaming platforms already, and really, really honing in on that and providing much more personalized, engaging experiences for viewers.
It's interesting from a sports perspective as well, because like you mentioned, they're so expensive to get these rights. It's a crazy sort of market to enter. So for someone like DAZN, it's a difficult battle for them to actually go out and get those rights in the first place, let alone be competitive with someone as big as Apple.
Yeah, but then the flip side of that is that you look at companies like Flow Sports, who have gone out and kind of quite deliberately sought more affordable rights, that they know they can get the rights, they can produce them at a level that the quality is high enough, but they're not kind of encumbered with this legacy infrastructure. So they can create the content at a lower price point for them. They can charge a lower subscription fee to their viewers and have a lot of content on there that isn't going to be your NFLs or your Premier Leagues, but it's still going to attract a big enough audience that actually you can make a business out of that. And they've done very well at that. The end result is that as a viewer, you might be a big fan of your local field hockey team, and that was never going to be on TV, ever. But now there's a dedicated service that's going to bring you a game, your team, your league, whatever, and you don't have to pay a huge amount, and you can watch it. And that's what people want, because not everyone is 100% about the Premier League. People have lots of different interests, and if the content is there at the right price point, they will watch it. And if there's a company that can produce that content and buy the rights and produce the content at a price point at which they can then monetize it, everyone wins.
Yeah, there's definitely a space for those grassroots level sports as well to get out there beyond like YouTube as well, like we've mentioned a few times now, getting beyond there and actually getting onto a platform where some of those grassroots level sports are brought together. Yeah. And I think in terms of then making a lot of money out of that, do you think that AI might be a game changer for those more engaging experiences?
AI is undoubtedly going to have an impact. It's already having a very, very big impact across society anyway. But it's also still at a very early point. It's like a lot of things. So everything sort of software and digital has the opportunity to move incredibly, incredibly quickly. Certainly in contrast with traditional broadcast tools. Things like AI have become prevalent very, very quickly. But I've heard people reference things like the metaverse, where, 2 years ago, everyone was talking about the metaverse. It's a completely different beast. It really is. And I don't think it's not a fair comparison, because AI is already intrinsic in so much of what we do without people actually realizing it anyway. And if you talk to younger generations, certainly younger than me, but digital native people, they're very familiar with these kind of things already. And you've got companies like Google now introducing it into their search, AI related search. It is going to come into broadcast, and it's one of the things I get asked in terms of graphics. Oh, are you doing AI yet? And it's like, well, I don't know. Are you ready to let AI determine what content you've got in your graphics that you put live on air? Of course you're not. But at a certain point, AI is going to become more involved in production. And I think the big fear that people always have, it's going to kill jobs. It will take jobs out of the industry. But actually, it doesn't need to. People also thought the same things about iPads. They thought the same thing about, I don't know, mobile phones and computers, that these things will destroy jobs and all this stuff. It doesn't. It just changes things. And ideally, AI can take on a lot of the menial tasks. It can take on a lot of the sort of the stuff that it's just time killing, And if you could do something with AI that's going to make that process much quicker and get to a point where you can apply your expertise, your judgment, your skill and experience to get to the end solution you need to, that is a beneficial thing. In broadcast in particular, I think we're at a very early stage in terms of understanding exactly how it can work, but there are already examples of where it is working. There's companies like Mimir, who is a Norwegian part of the Fond group, and there are others, but I just happen to know about theirs. But they have a brilliant kind of MAM. It's not really a MAM, but it is essentially an archive system, cloud-based archive system that uses AI, and it will automatically image detect content on the screen. So it could, maybe not us, but if you had Trump and Obama in a conversation, it would recognize who they are. And then you think about that sort of stuff. It just means that, when you're trying to pull up archive content, you say, okay, I need a clip of Obama and Trump talking about China. Type those keywords in. The AI is already automatically tagging all of the content, so it can then pick out where that clip is. It can then produce that, show you that clip, and it can, with something like Singular, it can auto-generate graphics. So it will recognize, okay, this is the first time Trump's on air, so therefore stick a lower third up saying, former President Trump, former President Obama, whatever. So it can auto-generate some of those things based on the image recognition. And then you've got a clip with graphics of what you need. That is pretty powerful. And that would have taken days, if not weeks of someone's time, assuming that it had all been kind of tagged properly in the first place when it was archived.
And then going back to graphic overlays then, we implemented things like QR codes with TVSN to take shoppers directly to their basket, take them to the item they wanted that was on screen. What's next in that, do you think, in terms of development of even the shopping experience? Or
for me, I think there's two things. So the evolution of that QR code is that with a platform like Singular, because it's HTML, okay, when you scan that QR code at the moment, typically what people do is it'll go to the website, and it'll probably be a mobile-friendly version. It should be, not always, but yeah, it's a mobile-friendly version of the website, and there you go. But actually, what some of the stuff we've been doing is what we call a second screen experience. Now, I can relate it to something, we haven't done this, but I could relate it to something like the X Factor, right? Because everyone knows what the X Factor is. If you stuck a QR code up there and scan that, typically what happens is that you then need to download an app, right? So I've got to download the X Factor app so that I can then vote. Great, that's exciting, isn't it? Except that in order to do that, someone had to build and develop that app in two formats, Android and iOS, then get it onto the relevant stores, then get someone to download it. And then as a viewer, you've gone through that process to download it. Great. Then when the show ends, you've got another app on your phone that you're not going to use for another year. And they'll probably update the app, so you'd have to download that. Anyway, so what Singular can do is that QR code can open up essentially a Singular graphic, but it will look like an app. It's a Singular graphic. It's purpose-built for a mobile phone or a tablet. And it can be exactly what you want it to be. So it can be, oh, great, thanks for, sponsor. Thanks for, coming voting. Who do you want to vote for? Or, send us your theories or send it whatever. It can do whatever you want it to do and act exactly like an app, but it's just a graphic. So it opens up a web browser on your mobile phone. You haven't had to build an app. You haven't had to download an app. And it gives you the flexibility to also be able to change it because it's a graphic. So if you want to change text or images, or you just do it like you would in a graphic and update it, and it automatically syncs to every person who's got it open. The second thing is voice. I think at the moment, voice is massively underestimated as a control interface in all sorts of different areas. The way I think it can become really, really interesting around shoppable is you could just be sat there. You could literally be sat there at your home watching a stream saying, okay, yeah, that's cool. I really like that shirt. And you can say, hey, John, I'd like to buy that shirt, size medium, please. And it could literally then just put it in your cart for you and then give you some feedback to say, okay, got this shirt with an image, and that's in your cart. It's $39.99. Do you want to proceed? Yeah. So you're doing the whole transaction. watching the stream. You haven't had to touch anything. It's literally voice control. And we've done some of that stuff around voice control. So voice activation of graphics, where you can, like, my idea is that you get home late to watch your football match, for example. You've missed the start of the games. You just go, hey Sky, hey Siri, hey whatever, TNT, show me the lineups. And it will just literally animate the graphics, show you the lineup. So you know, oh, great, that's who's playing. Now, you can't do that for everyone, but because I missed the start of the show, I want to know who's playing. It's just an easy way to do it. It's voice activation. So I think that's a big area.
We were talking about shoppable video content, and it seems to be one of the hottest topics in our industry today, that kind of crossover between what is arguably like retail and e-commerce into lean back content and entertainment that you get through streaming. And I don't think it solely applies also to teleshopping or infomercial content where you're primed to buy. What do you think the future will look like when it comes to a viewing experience that's combined with the monetization objectives of content distributors?
I think there's two elements to this, Ed. I think there is the social shopping is a big part, and you know, people as in selling stuff on social media. You know, when I talk, and I find it fascinating talking to my kids. I'm going to age myself again, but my eldest is 17, and he's all over Panda Buy and Vinted, and I'll like literally he'll have a box arrive, and then about 8 of his mates around, all divvying up what they've bought from Panda Buy, and I had no idea what it was at all. But the reality is, he's saying his mates don't go to shops. They don't go to shops to buy stuff. They know what they want, and they get it from Panda Buy. And if they want the original, they'll pay for it, or the original, or they'll pay for a fake, knowing it's a fake. But it'll be, you know, and they make their choices, and they wait 3 or 4 weeks for it to arrive, and they're okay with that. And he was like, it's kind of like, well, if you're a retailer, how are you supposed to deal with that reality that, you know, people are going direct to your suppliers and buying the stuff from them and totally kind of circumnavigating you? I think you do that by having a closer engagement and a closer relationship with your audience, with your customers. But what they're doing, I think what they need to do is engage that sort of social shopping, because people are selling stuff, again, because technology is allowing them to do so, and it will improve. You know, there's stuff we're working on at the moment on the Singular side that is very much focused around the shoppable experience. And now that I've said that, you'll probably see some other companies coming out and doing similar stuff, because we seem to get copied a lot. But anyway, there's a lot of that going on. But then I think also, if you look at what Amazon did with their X-ray, you know, where you could pause on a video and then get information about what's on screen. If you throw in a shoppable element to that, and again, you know, any broadcaster now can do the X-ray effect. They can do that. We've done it. We've. I can't say who we've done it for. We've done it. So I'm telling you, any broadcaster with an OTT platform can do that. So they pause the video, and whatever content they want to show on about what's on that screen, they can show. So yes, that could be, oh, this is this actor, he's got 4 Emmys and blah, blah, and she's or it can also be, do you want to buy the sofa they're sat on? Do you want to buy the shirt they're wearing? You know, do you like his sunglasses? Whatever you want. So the shoppable can work both in the kind of the social side, where you've got much smaller influencers, content creators who are selling their own stuff or stuff they're selling. I went on a crazy wormhole the other day of this shoppable, this woman who's literally basically going to trade fairs, and like where they were selling all kind. It was like an American version of Poundland, but on steroids. And she was walking around with her husband filming her, just chatting, going, oh, look, they're selling these. Who wants these? And people were in the chat saying, I'll take 50, I'll take 10. So she's just wandering around the trade show, buy to order. They're confirming their orders, and then she's going back, you know, package them up and send them out and making a profit. It's like, that is an amazing retailer kind of experience, because you're not taking a lot of risk. People are telling you what they want to buy. You're buying it and then selling it to them. It's like, that's genius.
When we talk about shoppable content, it doesn't have to be necessarily like, oh, you know, you see this, you buy it. It can be something that's done intelligently and creatively to actually capture people's attention and be incorporated into the narrative of an entire show, or even just creating a very good advertorial piece of content that's maybe related to the content you're already watching, which makes it already more attractive and feels like much less of an interruption in that viewing experience for people.
Yeah.
But just as an aside, going back then, sorry, Mike, go ahead.
No, I was just totally agreeing with you, Ed.
Oh, thank you. Well, that's great. I'm glad you agree, because I just wanted to go back to Singular.Live then for a moment. What's in the pipeline in terms of innovation and product enhancements?
Okay, so the big thing, I suppose, over the last 12 months for us was launching Uno. So what we saw when we launched Singular, we were getting a really large number of signups, but a lot of them were kind of not becoming active, and we looked into why that was. Because obviously, with our broadcast experience and our broadcast hats on, we thought, well, Singular's so easy to use. Why wouldn't anyone just use it? And then you realize it's easy for us to use relative to what we had been using. But actually, for kind of anyone who found us who didn't necessarily have a professional background in the broadcast industry and live production, it was actually quite complex. And that's the other big thing about the web, is that the internet is a very, very big place. And once you've got an offering out on the internet that anyone can sign up to, anyone can sign up to it, and they do. So we realized that we needed to create something much simpler. And that's what Uno is. Uno is it's overlays.uno, a really simplified version of Singular that doesn't have all the customization, authoring tools so you can build your own graphics from scratch that Singular has. But it has hundreds of templates that are all kind of based on Singular, the Singular back end. So they're all there. Really high quality, but really, really simple user interface. And that has, we launched Singular in 2019, January 2019, and we launched Uno really at the end of 2022. So like last year was when it really launched. And we already have significantly more Uno signups and active users than we do in Singular. It's really, really taken off. And it was built for streaming or for streamers who just needed something simple. And that has really grown very fast. So there's been quite a lot of focus on that and kind of servicing that, building more templates for that, responding to user feedback and delivering what they want. And we've got an amazing community now of streamers who are really, really active. We've got a really, really buzzing Discord channel where people are all like, you're on a good path when you've got your own customers and users who are fixing or answering questions for other people in a Discord channel. So you're like, okay, we'll just step back and let you guys get on with it. Perfect. That then allows us to focus on Singular and the enterprise offerings that we're doing. So there's more engagement. There's more integrations with other partners. There's some more solutions around localization coming, but really for us, it's about the partnerships, because we are just the graphics part, and graphics is just one small part. Like the integration we did with you guys, we are providing one part of it because that's our expertise. You guys do everything else because that's your expertise. So for us, that is the real sweet spot for Singular, is kind of working with partners where we can kind of fulfill the part we are best at doing and work with people who are best of breed to do what they want to do. So I think more of those kind of collaborations and integrations is definitely on the roadmap.
Real-time data analysis seems to be even more integral to businesses nowadays, especially in OTT. Do you think that broadcasters and content owners are fully aware of the importance of that data for their own brands and businesses?
Look, it's a massive generalization because obviously a lot of them are very different, but broadly, no, I don't. And I think the main reasons are that so much of this has changed so fast. Okay, so a lot of the people who are in quite senior positions at companies who are decision makers are not necessarily hands-on in the operation, seeing everything that's out there. A lot of them right now, frankly, are dealing with how do we keep this business afloat? How can I make this profitable? How do I make sure I can keep everyone here working here and not have to lay off a load more people? How can I afford the next right cycle? What's our business strategy? The reality is that there is so much technology and data available to people now to really help drive the decision-making process with what content you're creating, who you're targeting, how you're targeting them, what you're charging them. All of these crucial elements about how you can better understand your audience and serve them content that means they're going to keep coming back and paying you for that content. And I don't think we are yet at a point where people are really harnessing that, because it's not because of it's not because they've got their head in the sand. I think it's just there are only so many hours in the day, and it's just not yet something that is understood well enough for them to really, really appreciate the importance of it. But I think that will change, and it will change pretty rapidly, because it is absolutely fundamental to success as a business. And the most successful businesses, the most successful broadcasters, OTT platforms are really, really good at that.
They are most definitely are. You just look at recommendations on Netflix alone, and that's driven by data.
Absolutely.
But I think that's all we've got time for today, Mike. But thank you so much for everything we've covered today on our chat. It's been really insightful. Thank you for your time.
Absolute pleasure, Ed. Always fun. It's always fun having a chat and going around the house.
Thanks, Mike. If you're still listening, please don't forget to give us a rating and review in your podcast directory of choice. It means an awful lot for a growing podcast like ours. Make sure you subscribe to be alerted when the next episode of Beyond the Stream will drop. Until next time.